Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the meditation live stream here at Unity of Boulder. We're so glad that you're joining us today. We always start the service by chanting, and we invite you to join us in your homes. And, they say to chant or to sing is to pray twice. And when we are singing, we can't look upon the stresses of the world and all of the things that are happening right now that are taking over our minds and our hearts. This is a time to get in the resonance of spirit, and of that divine love that guides and directs everything, regardless of what's happening in the outer world. And so when we chant, we don't have to be in our thoughts anymore. We can just be in the isness of this beautiful healing vibration of God. So we invite you to sing with us, and Norma and I will be the call, and Louie and Larry will be the response. So welcome.
Where there is closer than breath. You are the air, sweeter than life. You are here, where there is strife. You are my peace, locked in my mind. You are release, closer than breath. You are the air, sweeter than life. You are here, where there is strife. You are my peace, locked in my mind. You are released by your grace, 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 by your grace. Closer than breath. You are the air, sweeter than life. You are here. I am a wanderer. You are my peace. I am a prisoner. You are released, closer than breath. You are the air, sweeter than life. You are here. I am a wanderer. You are my peace. I am a prisoner. You are released, closer than breath. You are the air, sweeter than life. You are here. I am a wanderer. You are my peace. I am a prisoner. You are released by your grace, by your grace, by your grace, by your grace, by your grace.
Good morning, everyone. Just a couple of announcements. We have our Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday meeting with the ministers at 12 noon. And you can join us for that on Zoom. If you need the code to that, simply email Unity of Boulder. We'll send it to you, or call, and we'll let you have it. Also, want to remind you that we're doing a special greeting on Tuesday morning at 10:30 a.m. out in our parking lot where we have our food collection barrels and have been out there for the last month. But now, from 10:30 on to about, I don't know, maybe 11:30 or 1 o'clock, you can drive by and drop off food for the different organizations that are attempting to get food to people that are in need. So we've been emptying these barrels and taking them over to these different food share places, and on Tuesday, we'll be there with a mask on and gloves just to say hello to you and greet you as you drop off any perishable foods that you've picked up in the marketplace that we can share with people that are in need. So we surely would appreciate that on Tuesday morning. If you're watching this right now, it means you are seriously devoted to awakening, to coming into the higher level of awareness and experience. That is to transcend the conditions of life that we live in the mundane, limited definition of life. That is, we are conditioned by circumstances. We operate in relationship only to circumstances that we react to over and over and over again. There's no real proactivity to be able to find our way into a higher way of living, a way that provides divine peace, insight, healing, love. These things are at the core of our being, the true values, the true things that our soul consciousness is seeking. So we want to transcend the limited thinking of the world. Of course, if right now you're eating a plate of pancakes and eggs with coffee, maybe you're not as dedicated as I first mentioned. But in any case, if you're tuning in and you're listening deep within, you may gain some opening in your own awareness that will provide for you stepping stones into the enlightened consciousness that we all seek. Our problem in the initial state of consciousness in which we were born and raised and educated is that we suppose that at some point in living we'll be able to gain control over circumstances by the volition of our own ego-centered endeavors, that somehow or other we'll figure out how to make the world work in favor of our desires and our demands. And that is not ever going to happen because we are not strictly physical beings. We are spiritual souls going through a physical experience of reflection in the learning process of universal growth. That's what we're about doing, and of course, at some point, lots of people think it's okay to just shut down. They're not aware of the fact or don't believe that there's any new experiences to be had except those that are physically oriented to the ego-centered gratification of life. And as I suspect people will remain in that level of consciousness for as long as they decide to let suffering be their way of life. There's always some amount of anxiety, some amount of suffering, always that fear, always that concern and worry that they must live in, living outside in the world of changing tides and circumstances. So, waking up means we're starting to enjoy the mastery of life rather than the shifting tides and conditions of the outer directed world. It means we're enjoying entering into that insight that the masters share that gives them the overwhelming love and peace that every soul is actually seeking. There are two guiding statements that lead to enlightened life. They were printed, established over the archway of the ancient temple in Greece, the temple in Delphi. It was the temple of the gods, or the temple of Apollo. But these were over the entranceway, these two statements that would guide us to the awakened life. And people would go into the temple. Sometimes it was written that they would be lined up to go into the temple and implore the gods for some favor, some healing, some relief from some difficulty. And they would go into that temple to ask the gods to help them. But every time they entered that temple, they had to pass under these two statements that lead to that life we are seeking. Know thyself was the first, and beneath it was written, all things in moderation. In Unity, we do a lot of meditation and prayer and training and discussion around knowing thy true self. That is, transcending the limited conditions and beliefs that we were raised in, educated in, and lived in for quite a while for some of us. So this idea of knowing thyself. But in the world, the problem with getting that across is that most people believe they know themselves. They believe that they are separate objective observers in the world of separate phenomena, and that they can figure things out and work their way through the changing circumstances to ultimately gain control that will bring them peace, happiness, fulfillment, and love. So there is that illusion that they do know themselves, when in fact they don't know their true self. But the statement under it provides an insight into one of the biggest flaws we have in our Western culture. All things in moderation. That idea is not something that is really bandied about in even spiritual circles. All things in moderation, it just doesn't seem to us to be a way of bringing more healing, harmony, and peace into our lives. What seems to us that if we had enough money or more money, if we could gain some more, personal advantages, some prestige, some popularity, some recognition, we would then be able to control the conditions we need to control, the people we need to control, so that we would be at peace. But you see, we don't have this ideal of all things in moderation. In fact, you just have to look at the world to recognize how far away we are from that being part of our agenda. There just doesn't seem to be enough. And this is true for people that appear to have just about everything on a physical level that you could want to sustain peace of mind and to have those particular conditions and circumstances meet your desires. So we look at these people, many of them, billionaires, multimillionaires, some of the movie stars, rock stars, people in big business, uh, trying to create bigger business, have more money than they know what to do with, but they're not willing to part with any of it for taxes to try to, help nourish the country that has given them all this physical wealth, because there's a madness that goes with attaining more than you need. There's an insanity with going for more than you actually need to live comfortably. And that insanity permeates the human experience in the Western culture. We simply do not know what is enough. It's a human flaw here in the Western culture. We don't know how to get to a place where we rest and are able to be present with other people and move with ideas and move in the sacred experiences of life all around us, because we're driven to think that we have to get more in order to ever fully relax and let go of our intensive quest to gain more money, more material well-being, more physical comfort, more leisure, more pleasure. We keep equating that with getting more. And the flaw in the human experience is not knowing what is enough. We have to get to that place, but the only way we can get there is by opening ourselves up to that divine nature within us that knows. We have to find our way into a state of knowing. And that knowing cannot come by the volition of the ego-centered will. We cannot make ourselves enlightened. We need to open up to allow the higher, truer self at the core of our soul awareness to rise within us and guide us on our journey in the world. We don't leave the world. We don't renounce the world. We operate as karma yogis. We're in the world, but we're not of the world. We're not of the thinking of the world, the illusions of the world, the insanity of the world that keeps moving people to try to get more, and not know how to be ever present and knowing. Knowing in the moment what is appropriate, what brings peace, what establishes love, what understanding we're seeking is established. It can only come through this opening to, this willingness to allow this divine awareness to rise up within us. Let us take a look at modern-day Master Eckhart Tolle's ideal regarding living in this present moment. You can read this in The Power of Now on page 131. With the acknowledgement and acceptance of the facts of life also comes a degree of freedom from them. For example, when you know there is disharmony and you hold that knowing, through your knowing a new factor has come in, and the disharmony cannot remain unchanged. When you know you are not at peace, your knowing creates a still space that surrounds your non-peace in a loving and tender embrace, and then transmutes your non-peace into peace. As far as inner transformation is concerned, there is nothing you can do about it. You cannot transform yourself. and you certainly cannot transform your partner or anybody else. All you can do is create a space for transformation to happen, for grace and love to enter. Can we have this back again? With the acknowledgement and acceptance of the facts of life, that you are divine in origin and called to become divine in expression, with those facts also comes a degree of freedom from them. For example, when you know there is disharmony and you hold that knowing, through your knowing, a new factor has come in, and the disharmony cannot remain unchanged. When you know you are not at peace, your knowing creates a still space that surrounds your non-peace in a loving and tender embrace, and then transmutes your non-peace into peace. As far as inner transformation is concerned, there is nothing you can do about it. You cannot transform yourself, and you certainly cannot transform your partner or anybody else. All you can do is create a space of transformation to happen, for grace and love to enter. This idea that we cannot transform ourselves is because, through the volition of the ego-centered will, we cannot make ourselves awakened. The awakening comes with a surrender, an openness, and allowing through spiritual practice this soul divine awareness to rise in our consciousness and to purify our minds, to remove the blocks to the awareness that we are all interconnected with every living thing we perceive around us. That has to be an opening that comes from within us, and that brings forth a purification of the mind that has been ego-centered and ego-driven. I'll tell you a true story. When I was living in New York with Norma, my wife, and we had one child, my first son, who was just an infant. We had a friend who I had known a long time before visit us. He had become a professor in the university, and he had inherited a great deal of money. And so he left the university and was on his way to India. He stopped in New York, where we were, and spent one day and one night with us. He showed up, he's about 28 years old at the time. He showed up with two beautiful girls. They couldn't have been more than 20 years old. And he explained to us that he was on his way to India to find his guru. And after finding that guru, he would receive the enlightenment, and then he would return to the States, where he already purchased 168 acres of land, and he was going to open his own commune. And my first thought, looking at him with these two beautiful girls on either side of him, my first thought is, yeah, you're going to get a lot of spiritual understanding with these two girls. He's taking them with him. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of spiritual understanding with these two flower children in India. And then my second thought was, oh God, how can I get him to take me with him? Or just leave one of the girls behind. No, that's not true. I'm just having some fun. The fact of the matter is, he said, after I said to him, I think the guru you're looking for is within you. I mean, if you appeal to the Christ in you, you'll find all the spiritual guidance you need to live a life truly worth living, to have peace and healing and true joy that is not contingent upon the world operating according to your personal desires. And he said this, I've never forgotten it. He said, I don't like the idea of being used. There it was, the ego in its full-flown consciousness speaking to me. So in concluding this, I simply once again want to remind you of the necessity for spiritual practice. We have all, from the very beginning of our inception into the world, we've been living from an illusionary idea of life, a false perception, a false definition that holds us to the concept we are strictly physical beings and that our quest must be to gain control over all of the separate phenomena that appears outside of us. The spiritual awakening, the enlightened awareness, and the enlightened life do not come until we have allowed the divine consciousness to come forth, open our awareness to the fact that we are all interconnected, that everything we look upon rises with us moment to moment to moment. It doesn't rise separate from us. It rises with us moment to moment to moment. And knowing that, we start to feel the beauty of sacred awareness. We start to live in the vision of Christ and the majesty of the different masters that have given us this truth down through the ages. Let us take our time each day to practice meditation and affirmative prayer in our daily lives. We'll begin to meditate again this morning with our Tibetan bowls leading us in the energies that we need to feel as we do that. When we've gone through the bowls, I'm going to share with you a very simple meditation that Master from Vietnam, Thich Nhat Hanh, shared with everyone. So we'll have the bowls now. Okay. follow this simple meditation technique into that place of acceptance and peace. Just say the words, in, out, calm, ease, smile, release, present moment, wonderful moment. Of course, you say this to yourself. Being quiet, just allow these words to rise in your mind. In, out, calm, ease, smile, release, present moment, wonderful moment. In, out, calm, ease, smile, release, present moment, wonderful moment. As we go forth from this meditation, let us go forth with a greater determination to practice meditation. It doesn't take long periods of time. You can start with 10 minutes in the morning before you enter the day. Eventually, it will draw you in to longer periods because of the joy and peace it provides. And for this opportunity in every moment to affirm the universal presence everywhere around us, we give thanks. And to this we say, Amen. A final reminder that we have our Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday at noon minister meeting. You can show up, have any questions, we'll discuss anything. Just tune in, Zoom in. And if you need the Zoom code, simply email unityofboulder.com and you will receive it. Also, we have a Saturday service with the Rev. Shad Groveland at 5 o'clock every Saturday. And following this service, every Sunday we have Reverend Santisha Shadle sharing her truth about being a karma yogi, living a very powerful life with children and operating in the world, but operating from spiritual perspective. So tune in and stay in touch. And of course, if you will take the time to find that donate button on your screen and make a donation to Unity of Boulder, it would certainly be appreciated. It allows us to continue to do the spiritual work that we do.